You're sitting across from her trying to explain something that matters to you. Your voice is steady, your words are measured, you've thought this through. And she goes silent, just gives you a blank stare with no reaction. You wait, thinking maybe she didn't hear you. So you try again. Nothing, just that cold, empty silence stretching on like a wall that you can't see through. So you feel yourself scrambling, trying harder to connect, to clarify, to break through, but the wall does not move. And somewhere in that silence, you start to wonder if the problem is you. This is not a communication breakdown. This is control. And it's happening every time you try to speak. This is an episode about stonewalling in conflict, one of the core tactics an abuser uses to maintain control over the conversation. We're isolating it so that you can see clearly, recognize how stonewalling in an abusive relationship works in real time, and understand what you can do when you're facing it. And for those of you who are new here, this is Stand Again, a lived experience platform for male victims of family violence. Abuse is not limited to one gender, but this channel focuses on the male perspective because it is so often dismissed or misunderstood. If this content helps you, please like, subscribe, and comment the words Stand Again into the chat. Your words might just help a victim of family violence find theirs. Stonewalling in conflict is a deliberate refusal to engage in communication, emotional response, or resolution during moments of tension. Abusers use it to establish dominance through silence. Your words are met with nothing, no acknowledgement, no reaction, just a void where communication should be. The mechanics are simple. The abuser withdraws from the interaction, avoids eye contact, acts busy, or engages in dismissive behaviors. The goal is power through disconnection. The tactic keeps you on the hook. The issue remains technically open, so you can't pursue alternatives or make clear decisions. But nothing moves forward unless the abuser decides it does. When communication is blocked, conflict cannot be resolved. In an abusive dynamic, that is intentional. The immediate psychological impact is isolation and self doubt. You start questioning whether you said something wrong, whether you're being unreasonable, whether you are the real problem. This is not accidental. The abuser knows that most people cannot tolerate unresolved conflict or prolonged disconnection. The silence does the work of telling you you are wrong without the abuser having to justify why. Stonewalling occurs during emotionally charged moments, during arguments, during vulnerability, and during attempts to address real issues in the relationship. The abuser shuts down completely while you are left scrambling, trying to reconnect, clarify, or make sense of what just happened. This silence becomes psychological punishment that withholds acknowledgement, accountability, and basic human decency. For men experiencing abuse, stonewalling exploits how most men approach conflict. There's a problem, you talk about it, you identify solutions, you resolve it. That's how problems get fixed. Stonewalling throws that entire framework out. Men typically prefer direct problem solving approaches and become frustrated when resolution is repeatedly blocked. The solution's obvious, communicate, but she won't. And you can't force someone to talk who's chosen not to. Every practical instinct you have about handling conflict is now useless. Sometimes you don't even register that stonewalling is happening. You might walk away from a conversation thinking the issue was not important to her, only to discover hours later that she's furious you didn't pick up on her stonewalling. You're being punished for something you didn't know was occurring. This adds confusion that makes the tactic even more effective. You are dealing with an expectation that you should have known her silence was a weapon. When a woman uses stonewalling intentionally as an abuse tactic, it's particularly effective against male partners. The abuser appears composed while you become increasingly frustrated. If you show that frustration, if you raise your voice, if you show any sign of the emotional toll that the stonewalling is taking, you are framed as aggressive, unstable, or the real abuser. Outsiders see a calm woman and an agitated man. They don't see the hours of stonewalling that preceded your reaction. The abuser gets to point at your frustration as evidence of your instability, while her silence looks like restraint. This dynamic is weaponized in family, court, and social circles, and also in your own mind. You become afraid of your own emotional reactions because they can be used to paint you as the problem. So you suppress them, which deepens the psychological damage. You stop speaking up because you've learned that your voice will be met with punishment. The issues, in the meantime, continue to accumulate without any resolutions. There are four distinct types of stonewalling that manifest in abusive relationships. Each has its own mechanics, but they all serve the same function, which is control through withdrawal. Let's take a look at each. The first is flat refusal to engage. Flat refusal to engage is the most overt form of stonewalling. The abuser completely shuts down communication during conflict. You might ask a question, raise a concern, or try to clarify a misunderstanding and be met with nothing. No words, no acknowledgement, no reaction from your abuser. The refusal is deliberate, a calculated choice to create discomfort, provoke frustration, and signal to you that your voice is worthless. Sometimes she might say, I'm not answering that, or say what you want, I don't care. Sometimes she'll just give you a blank stare with no eye contact, just silence. Or she walks away when you're mid sentence, making it clear you are not worth listening to. The refusal might last for hours or even days after a disagreement. Being ignored by someone you care about triggers deep emotional pain. Social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. But within an abusive dynamic, this pain is the point. The abuser knows that silence creates distress. They know that most people will try harder to reconnect when faced with total withdrawal. They use that knowledge to maintain control while you exhaust yourself trying to break through. Type 2 is withholding until you apologize. Like the name suggests, withholding until you apologize in stonewalling is when she uses silence to extract an apology from you. The conflict is not over, the issue has not been addressed. Communication is simply withheld until you give in, admit fault, or you take the blame. The tactic creates a relational stalemate. Nothing moves forward until you collapse under the pressure and say the words she is waiting for. What makes this abusive is that it bypasses dialogue entirely. There's no attempt to explore what happened, no curiosity, no shared reflection. The abuser withdraws emotionally and weaponizes silence until you cave. The message is clear. The price of reconnection is your self abandonment. You might hear her say, I just need space until you figure out what you did wrong. Or you might hear, you know what you did. I am not saying a word until you own it. Sometimes there's no explanation at all, just emotional coldness that persists until you apologize for something unclear or untrue. I'm not sure what I did. I'm sorry anyway. The silence is maintained for hours, sometimes days after a minor disagreement. It's broken only when you say the words that she is waiting for. Every false apology you offer trains you to ignore your own boundaries. Every time you take the blame for something you did not do, you give away more power. The cycle becomes silence, guilt, apology, brief calm, repeat. Each round takes more of your voice with it. The next type of stonewalling is shutdowns. Shutdowns in stonewalling occurs when the abuser unilaterally declares a topic is off limits. This is different than flat refusals because it's not about blocking one conversation. It's about banning the subject entirely, such as, I am done talking about this. It doesn't mean not right now, it means never ever again. Any future attempt to raise the issue is treated like a violation. This is authoritarian control over a topic. The abuser decides which topics you are allowed to discuss in the relationship and which are permanently closed. They're not withdrawing from conversation, they're forbidding you from ever having it. The shutdown dismisses accountability, it silences criticism, and ensures certain issues will never be addressed in the relationship. You might hear, this conversation is over, or we're not talking about this again, or even there is nothing left to say. Sometimes she walks away after declaring it, make it clear the decision is not negotiable. Sometimes she says, you just want to fight. I am not talking about this. If you try to bring the topic up days or weeks later, you're met with hostility. I already told you I am done with this. The message is clear. This subject is closed by her authority, and raising it again makes you the problem. The shutdown teaches you that certain topics are permanently forbidden, not unresolved, forbidden. You're not allowed to speak about them, not now, not ever. This creates a relationship where entire areas of conflict, concern, or need become invisible because the abuser has decided they are not up for discussion. The last type of stonewalling is evasion framed as space. Evasion framed as space is a form of stonewalling that disguises itself as emotional regulation or even healthy boundary setting. The abuser falsely claims that they need time to think, need space to process, or don't want to say something that they will regret, but they never return to the issue. The conflict disappears into silence, unresolved, unspoken, and unfinished. The tactic is really subtle, and that's what makes it corrosive. It looks like it's maturity, it looks like self awareness. You might even admire it initially, thinking she's taking time to reflect. But days pass, weeks pass, months pass. The issue never comes back. And when you try to raise it again, even softly, you're met with hostility, deflection, or even further delays. You might hear things like, I just need some space, I'll come back to this later. Or, I don't want to say something I'll regret. Or even just simply, now is not the time. The issue is never revisited unless you bring it up again. And then you are told to drop it. Why are you still hung up on that? I thought we moved past this. Or even, you're always so intense about this stuff. The effect is gaslighting through omission. The abuse is not what is said, it's what is avoided in being said. Your needs go unanswered, your concerns evaporate. Eventually, you learn to stop bringing them up because the abuser has framed their evasion as healthy space taking. You're left doubting whether you even have the right to expect resolution. The abuser has successfully reframed your need for communication as you being demanding, intense, or even unable to let things go. Stonewalling in conflict is deliberate. It's an abuse tactic designed to make you doubt yourself, exhaust you emotionally, and teach you that your voice leads to punishment. Recognition is the first step. If you saw yourself in this video, that matters. You're not imagining it. And recognition itself is harder than it sounds. because you've typically been trained to doubt what you're seeing. When you're being stonewalled, don't fight for communication. That's what the tactic wants. For you to become increasingly frustrated, emotional, and desperate to connect. The more you push, the more distressed you become, and the more ammunition she has to paint you as the problem. Let the silence sit. You can't force someone to engage who's chosen not to. This isn't giving up. This is refusing to play a game rigged against you. Use that silence to protect your sanity, not lose your sanity. Step away physically if you can. Go for a walk, leave the room. Give yourself space to calm. The silence isn't about her needing time to process, it's about her maintaining control. So don't sit in it, waiting for her to grant you permission to be heard. Remove yourself from the punishment. Your job is not to fix her unwillingness to communicate. Your job is to stop letting it break you down. If she breaks a stone wall to drag you back into the conflict, and she often will, re engage calmly. This is critical. When she suddenly wants you to talk again, it's usually not to resolve anything, it's to regain control or extract something from you. So when you do come back to the conversation, do it with clarity and calm. Don't agree to things you did not do. Don't accept blame for things that are not true. Don't let your silence during her stonewall be reframed as agreement with whatever narrative she's been building while you were shut out. You stayed calm, you gave her space. That does not mean you accepted her version of reality. That does not mean that you are admitting fault. That does not mean the issue is resolved. It means you refuse to be baited into reactions that could be used against you. Hold your ground on what is true. Do not negotiate away your reality just to end the discomfort from stonewalling. The goal here is not to win the argument or fix the relationship through better tactics. Stonewalling is not a communication problem you can solve with the right approach. It's a control tactic. The goal is to see the pattern clearly, protect yourself when you're in it, and make decisions about your future with open eyes. Every time you recognize stonewalling happening, you take back a piece of the power it held over you. Every time you refuse to chase the conversation or apologize for things you did not do, you're choosing not to participate in your own erosion. You did not cause the silence. You did not deserve the silence. And you don't have to keep trying to break through a wall that was built to keep you out. Recognizing what this is changes what comes next. It changes how you respond. It changes what you are willing to tolerate. And eventually, it changes whether you stay. You are not alone in this and you're not imagining it. Trust what you're seeing, trust the pattern, and trust that you deserve to be heard. This is Stand Again, lived experience platform for male survivors of family violence. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice might just help another man find his. If you're looking for one on one support, you can book coaching with a member of the Stand Again team. Simply visit standagain.com.au, where you will also find grounded information on surviving and recovering from family violence as a man. As always, remember that no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.